Hello and welcome back to the Engerati studio here at European Utility Week, and I'm joined now by Howard Porter, as a director at ESMIG, and I have to contextualize that because your specific experience is for the UK market. And Howard, I've been reading a lot in the utility industry about customer engagement, and I'm going to come in at a slightly controversial angle because unlike me selling mobile phones or a data tariff or things like that, the utility provides something that I need to live. So in a way, they've got me over a barrel. And what is the motivation for a utility to go down this route of engaging the customer to try and give them the most cost-efficient tariff, when actually, if I look at it from a business perspective, I want people to be as cost ineffective in a way and pay me as much as I can possibly get for what I'm selling. That's what a market does. So where is this whole customer engagement thing? Well, what's it really about?
I think it's a very relevant point and a very difficult point to really cover. A lot of it comes down to, in the historical way any energy companies work, you're absolutely right, that when it's a relatively simple production of, you produce energy, you transmit it and you sell it to customers. I think where it becomes different is if you have lots of competition within the marketplace, and that again is a very UK perspective, where there is full competition in supply. And under that scenario, there is a competitive edge. Some say not enough competitive edge, but there is a competitive edge that once there is, I'll give you an example, there was a price rise last week of an energy company in the UK, and reports that they have 50,000 people have switched supply since that price rise. Now that is a market working. It may not be a massive work, but it's a market working. So in that sense, the consumer has some power. They can actually decide, you know what, I don't like that price rise, or how they've treated me, or how they have dealt with me in the past, or they're not giving me a photovoltaic tariff. Whatever the reason, they can look elsewhere to see what offers are on. Now that works in a competitive energy industry. If you look at the markets where there is less competition or no competition, that rationale for engaging the consumer clearly lessens, because there isn't the need for the energy company, and any company in their position, to talk to the customers, find solutions for customers, because there's not the competitive edge. There are some longer term issues, but probably they're not yet playing out, in that if you have lots of renewable energy, and across Europe some countries have got lots of renewables coming on stream, they are by definition more variable supplies. There is a challenge as to how you manage that energy flow into the system and match it against the energy used by consumers. So one other rationale, I'd say in a more long-term role, is that the consumer using energy can play a role in balancing the energy systems with renewables.
But isn't that the type of message where are we not in danger of treating consumers as people who won't understand a reasoned argument? Because that to me sounds like a reasoned argument, where you go, listen, in order, Germany's famous Energiewende, in order for us to safeguard our energy supply, we need to take a big leap forward in terms of the amount of renewables that are within our energy mix. In order to do that, everybody needs to play their role. Isn't there a danger that when the customer engagement piece is all centered around, so much around the tariff, you know, the conversation is just about the tariff, rather than maybe a more holistic picture is saying, look, if we go down this road, this is a 10-year plan, And in the UK in particular, we're not very good at 10-year plans because you get politics in the way. But this is a 10-year plan, and that will allow us to safeguard our energy policy. We'll have more renewables in the mix, therefore we need to import less gas. Therefore the net effect in 10 years' time, you may not end up paying more for your energy. But if we carry on the way we are, you will, because the wholesale gas price we don't control.
I think you're right. And I think that is one of the challenges in all member states, is to be able to get those messages in sufficiently understandable forms that the vast majority of consumers will understand. I think the danger is, and we see in the energy industry in general, that energy prices, energy tariffs, the supply of energy is becoming much more politicised, which in one way is a good thing, because at least politicians are really thinking about energy. But some may argue that politicians will try and go for the quick win in terms of a policy, meaning that long-term vision, the long-term rationale for including consumers, either as a competitive environment or indeed in balancing the system, is often lost. I think one further point that we didn't cover here is that there is a thought process that consumers already are and will become much more questioning about their energy supply, because in other parts of their homes, in their lives, they have smart technology. The vast majority of people either now or will have a smartphone, will have a wireless internet at home, will use iPads and other tablets and other smart technology. And they can swap lots of things very quickly. More and more consumers will be used to instant changes, and they will increasingly look at their energy supplier and think, hey, why can't I have a similar interaction with my energy supplier, particularly if the costs of that energy are significantly increasing? Why can't I have a similar interaction with my energy company than I can with all the other services I have? So I think that is difficult to define when that will happen. It will vary on the member state and the level of adoption of smart technologies and the rationale of consumers. And it does vary a lot. But at some point, people are going to ask the question, now is that next year or in 10 years? One doesn't know. And I think the rationale for how to use smart metering data, which is the majority of activities we're involved in at the European level, is there are a number of ways of showing consumers how much energy they've used. There's lots of innovations you see around the exhibition today, lots of innovations as to how you can engage consumers by physical displays, ever more innovative displays, integration of using that information on mobile devices or on the internet, or even in good old paper bill, but in a rather more way.
So going back on that point, one of the things that I've always argued, that if you, and I'm going to lay myself bare for some criticism here potentially, because I am in the market and I should know better, but for me to switch at the moment, my net gain over the year is £10. I'm not going to do it. And even then it's on a variable tariff, so the next thing I know I got to switch again in 6 months just to stay £10 ahead. It's a very small amount, and that goes to another argument, is energy too cheap? But the point I'm making isn't the main thrust of all this energy consumption and being better users of energy, better placed in industrial, commercial complexes, where actually if you do a 2% saving, that is enough of a saving to pay someone full-time to worry about it and still make a saving.
I think you're correct on both points, but I would argue that again, we're talking primarily about a competitive market. So this is a UK-based situation where you can make those switches. Some people maybe £10 a year. I think it's more like £100 a year. When we're looking at energy bills that are around £1,300, £1,500 a year, if you can go and get a 10% reduction, that's £150 straight away. So I would argue that there is significantly more value in swapping than £10.
Well, you're saying as I have to do a better job looking around.
I think you have to go on the right websites, have a look at where you can get the best deals.
Yeah.
Are energy prices too cheap? That's a very controversial piece. I would say absolutely not, because there is, at that value, and particularly around Europe, if you add up the average prices, it's very significant for the average consumer, average household. So no, they're not too expensive. I think if you go into commercial industrial areas, you're absolutely right, but you go into a different paradigm, because there there are many different types of household consumers. There are many, many different types of businesses, commercial operators who look at their energy very differently. I sit on various other committees in Brussels, and we spoke to big industrial organisations, and they say 3% of a manufacturing plant is on energy. 3%. Now that's better if it's 2%, but actually, in the scheme of things, we can probably earn more money by selling energy efficient kit and renewables kit than we can for 3%. It does vary. Now, it's also relative to the business, because if you have a turnover of 50 million and you've got energy bill of 200,000, if you can reduce it by 20, it's great. But is that not the same perspective as my household income of 50,000 and you're reducing it from 1,500 to 1,200? So I think you're right, but it very much depends on somebody, whether it's in a domestic premises, commercial, industrial, understanding and just saying, yes, I can significantly reduce my costs. But I don't think there's a massive difference between those three areas.
And does that go back to the sort of education point? Because I did this exercise a while back in terms of when the telecoms market deregulated, and people were saying, hey, you can switch now, you can switch now, you can switch now. It took a long time, actually, when you look at it, for consumers to get quite comfortable with switching. And which is why mobile phone networks in the UK are now trying to lock you into 13, 14-month tariffs, because we got too good at switching. We're just like going, hang on a minute, I've given this guy a mobile phone and now he's switched on me. What's that all about? I'm making a loss here. Do you think we're at that sort of tipping point? And again, we are talking about the UK, just to contextualize to anybody watching, and we talked about this beforehand. This is kind of a UK conversation, I think. Let's shrink it to that. Do you think we need to just hit that tipping point where consumers are doing a lot? Because that energy announcement that you talked about the price hike, 50,000 people switching, actually, that's not that big. It could be bigger, and it ought to be bigger if we are switchers.
No, I think you're right. And again, speaking from a technology producer's perspective, the plan, I think the evidence shows that if you have some smarter technology within the building, it doesn't need to be that smart, and that can be prompted, or there's a number of innovations that I know people are considering, where you can link the actual energy information received via the smart metering system with a switching site. So once that information has been received on your
switches
tablet,
you automatically.
I wouldn't say automatically.
Or within.
That there could be then that there's a lot of thought how you can connect having the information within the building through this secure smart metering system into then the network, into the home network, or indeed the commercial building network. Once that information is available, what you do with that data and how that data is used, there's a number of ways in which you can use it, some of which are not yet invented. But the concept is that at the moment, for a consumer to switch, they have to usually be a bit au fait with their websites. My mother, for instance, doesn't have internet, and there's unlikely to switch. But those people that can connect onto a website, go on the site, plug in your existing one. So you have to have a certain amount of knowledge and understanding. If you have the smart system, again, you may need to have a computer in the home to do that, but maybe not. Maybe other solutions come up, because the information will be available that will at least tell you for the last day, for the last month, how much it cost, whereas at the moment it's more an estimates and therefore difficult to comprehend.
You know what, I'd sign up for that. I'd pay someone, I don't know, $5 a year or something like that, connect it all up, and they do the work and just keep me on the same tariff.
I'll introduce you to some companies. Yeah.
Good, excellent. So thank you very much, Howard. And not only has this been a great interview, but I think I've saved some money on my utility bill in the process. Howard, thanks for being in the studio. Thank you as well for watching. And this has been another interview with Engerati. You can watch them all online, and you can also see all the presentations that happened at this event. So thanks again.